Welcome to the Essex Junction Trustees meeting. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, and Elaine is trustee. Elaine is Skyping in this evening, but Dan is here. And we're going to be addressing this issue later on, because I raised the question of if everyone Skypes into the meeting, when is it no longer a meeting at what point? So we're going to talk about that later. Evan had come up with a policy change. Okay, so first order of business, additions, agenda additions or changes. Anything we need to change, Evan? Anything on the agenda? Anything differently?
No, I believe we're good to go.
Okay, great. Next item of business is public to be heard. Do we have anyone in the public who wants to be heard? I think we're probably not. Okay, later on. So we will move on to our first item of business, which is a review of the FYE 20 proposed budgets. And Sarah, you and Evan do. Okay, take it away.
Almost have the spreadsheet up here.
Well, we have them.
You do have them.
Yeah.
This morning I had a really nice email from Lauren, who's enjoying her time in Florida, who said to me, "Oh, I see you reduced the transfer to capital, but you didn't change the capital spreadsheet." And I said, "Oh, well, I didn't mean to."
Oh, okay.
So, thanks for catching that.
Checking up on
I know. It's like, well, thank God for you, Lauren, and your computer. So the spreadsheet that you have,
Folks, I'm having a real hard time hearing Sarah.
okay, if I talk slower, is that helpful?
As long as you're close to whatever microphone is in play.
Oh, so this is better?
Thank you, yeah.
Oh, good. Oh, I don't think I need to. I just want to get myself some more screen room without accidentally hanging up on Elaine.
Yeah.
Cool.
That'd be good.
Okay.
Since it was hard to get her.
I know. All right. I'm good with that. I'm good with this. So, budget. I guess I do need this. Sorry, you guys. So Evan had sent out an email summarizing some of the information from the town budget that may be of interest to the trustees. And one of the things that has, or the one thing that has a direct financial impact is that the town has in their budget a $50,000 transfer to the village as a contribution to the town clerk position.
Right.
And that shift makes the full-time staff in that office about 70-30, which is what we're aiming for, so that worked out really very nicely. One of the changes I have made to this budget document and the spreadsheet that I sent as well, because it's so much easier to look at it in spreadsheet form, is that I've added a revenue line item for that $50,000 transfer in the revenue section.
Okay.
The other change in this budget document is I have removed that rolling stock transfer.
Right.
I actually pulled it out of the fire segment and out of the highway segment, and I put them back into transfers and miscellaneous where they had been originally.
Okay.
So those are the big changes. The document that you guys had the normal 7.5% increase to capital, which we don't want to do, so I bumped that back up to the 15%. And so tonight we're starting at a 4.24% overall budget increase, with a 1% projected growth in the non-global foundries grand list. We get a 3% even tax rate increase, or an impact of $26.03. Now, I have put together this new tab in the spreadsheet, if you had a chance to look at it, that will allow us to talk about some areas where we may reduce or increase depending on you know, if there's something you wanna reduce, but I don't know if there's shifting you wanna do, not an overall increase, but we can talk about items one at a time, and we can see, the rolling budgetary change, the rolling percentage change, and the dollar impact on the average home, which had been requested previously, so I've added that in hopefully in enough places so that we can have a
Right.
really meaningful conversation about the numbers.
Right, got you. Everyone good?
The other quick thing I wanted to note is that the town budget is an average increase of $28 on a $280,000 home, where it's an estimated 1 penny increase. That's slightly different from the warning, because I didn't estimate any growth in the grand list. So once that's in there, it's a 1 penny. So $28 on the town side, and I know because the villagers all pay that as well, but that's impactful to our discussion.
Yep, okay. I note that you also, at our last meeting, we said if anyone had any additional recommendations for reductions or anything like that, to ask you independently, and you would have the numbers here, and I'm assuming that no one did that. We were all, did any of us, everyone was sort of okay? And no one sent any additional questions to you, so I just wanted to clarify that.
The items that I have here in this spreadsheet, in the proposed reductions tab, are items that we had just discussed in,
Yep,
you know,
gotcha.
someone might have
Yep.
brought up. So these aren't set in stone, but it's a reasonable starting point.
Yep, gotcha. Yep, Lori.
And just ask a question as we start this process. So let's say we change the rate by 0.5%. What does that do to the dollar? Do you have, so if we start changing these, do you have that change into the dollar?
Not from a rate percentage increase, but as we start
Oh,
changing.
it's right there, I'm sorry,
It's,
okay.
yeah, so as we start changing these, so as we go down,
So changing to a so if we did all of those,
yeah,
we get to 3.47%, which is a $16.
You have to
That's-
reduce about $40,000.
that's correct. And
Okay.
that 3.47%, I think this is important for the discussion, that's the overall budgetary increase.
Yep.
I can probably, I can put this, I don't know if I can put
Is
that
it-
on
That's
the
okay,
other
that-
screen.
your
easily.
answer helped, that's fine.
Okay. Okay. So let's talk about
And
the
since,
budget.
and since several of the items that you had mentioned were EJRP related, I asked Brad to be here
Right.
so that he could answer to what its impacts would be.
Oh, sorry, yep, I gotta be talking into this. Yep, go ahead, Evan.
Well, like I said, he's here, so,
Right.
you know. As we mentioned previous to this, at your last discussion, one of the large dollar increases to the budget was actually the capital transfer increase. The village board pretty much unanimously at that time said you did not want to reduce that, and we don't recommend that you reduce it. It is starting to head in the right direction. Some of those other increases are the changes to EJRP's cleaning, the way they do their buildings. Currently, they are using a staff member to do that. They are looking to change that, to have their one of two people, actually go back and do more physical stuff that's out in the field with getting parks ready, parks cleaned up, and going to a cleaning contract like the rest of our buildings. And then, we had some suggestions as to changing the timing of when that occurred instead of taking it out completely, and then you could see on the list. But for the people at home, there was a reduction of a couple of dollars in community events. There was, there's the capital, community development asked for a new printer. We can possibly go one more year with the printer that we have. And so there's minor stuff. Most of the rest of the budget is programmatic.
Right. Okay.
I personally am fine with.
You're fine with it? Okay. Are you good? Andrew?
I have a couple of, just if now is the right time type things, and I don't know if it makes sense, they are EJRP related, I'm not sure if it makes sense for.
Go for it, yeah.
Yeah,
Go for
well,
it.
if we can have Brad come up a little bit closer, so.
Careful with board.
And I appreciate it, because I dragged him here, he
Yeah.
should at least get one
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, no kidding. We gotta at least make something up or.
No, I've got a couple. So, I'm fine with the cleaning contract as it is and not reducing that. With the communications position, where, to me, it's a matter of, I'm not opposed to there being a communications position for EJRP. There is I can see value in it. Where I'm coming from is, as we're gonna co-locate the two departments from the two municipalities, is now the time to do it, instead of waiting until we have a year under our belts of looking at how is this gonna work, is there somebody who's gonna have some additional time based on having additional people in the building, instead of having there be a position for it.
Yeah, and so my thinking is the exact opposite actually, is in meeting with Ally, this is the only staff increase that we identified as really setting this up for success. And there, this would allow there to be one consistent voice of recreation for two departments that are going to be trying to get out, who currently get out two different messages. And so we think, and right now, all four of Ally's people in her office contribute to their messaging. We have 4 or 5 people in my office that contribute. So as we looked at 9 people coming together under one roof to get out one consistent message through one website and one brochure, this is where we felt strongly that it would allow us to just have that. And also, I hate the word neutral, but it would be a neutral voice because we would hire it jointly and supervise it jointly. So it wouldn't be Pat, running Pat from my office doing social media and Adrian doing front porch forums from her office, and it would just be one person that we advertise for, hire together, that makes those decisions. The town has already funded the 10 hours a week, so we're just trying to fund the additional 10 hours.
Right. Which at this point, to then take that out when it's already in the town's approved budget would be a little weird to say, yeah, we're gonna come together, except no, you're not going to fund our part.
Can I just ask, I don't want to take,
Yeah,
but
go
just a
ahead.
follow-up to communications, are you moving to a different subject? Do you think you'll be able to find a qualified person for 20 hours a week?
I'm optimistic. I'm seeing it more as an opportunity for somebody who does kind of freelance work to pick it up in their portfolio kind of thing, is how I'm envisioning it. You never know till you reach out and put it out there.
Okay.
I think there's gonna be a lot of flexibility to it, so it would lend itself well to somebody who either wants to work 20 hours a week and that's it, or who's looking to augment some of the other part-time stuff that they do and weave it in, so.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Is this something you expect the person's gonna be remotely? Technically, do they really have to be on site? They could be, in the town or the village or outside of the village or town. I mean, is it necessary for them to be on site, or do you, because the face-to-face contact isn't as much as the communication, the content, the material, the information that they're gonna be putting out and how they're gonna, as I see it, it's positive in the sense that we've got somebody has an expertise in that area, pushing out information on what's happening on the communications. They're better at it than anybody in-house, I assume.
Yeah. No, it's a good observation. I think what we've written into the job description is they would have to have some mandatory office hours, weekly office hours. I think there's a lot to be gained from that face-to-face interaction and just hearing and being a part of what's going on in the office. But I don't think they need to be there all 20 hours. So again, it depends on the candidate. If they don't have a home office and would like to be there, we'll set up shop for them, 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. If they would prefer to work more, and have more flexibility in their schedule, maybe they'll, work 2 days a week.
Sure.
Yeah.
So,
Can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
Considering the large amount, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, cool. Considering the large amount of people that ERP and EJRP touch, I think this is a small investment to accomplish that in a more efficient way. So I'm all for keeping this particular position.
Right. Okay, yeah. Evan.
so, also what may not also be clear is, a while back, we talked about unifying website stuff. So the town has engaged a website development company called Civic Plus. They do about 70 million people across the United States, municipalities that cover about 70 million. One of the things of the contract is to take all of our individual websites, EJRP, ERP, everybody, and sort of unify the look and the feel. But every department is going to be responsible for making sure that their content is the right content and easily accessible. This position will give them that person who can do it for both the town and the village rec, and unify what's on the website, how easily it is found, where it's found, and once it, I assume to Brad and Ally, will be uploading all the new things that they need and the pictures and stuff, unifying what's going on and where, and that person will probably be also their website person moving forward. So,
And we are planning to just have, to develop one website for rec, so there won't be two on the system.
And then there was a comment just a few minutes ago that the town has already put it in their budget. They're about a week or so ahead of you. They had to be.
Yeah.
They're a month ahead in terms of their schedule. That should not be your decision as to whether you do this or not, but from a staff perspective, we do feel it is appropriate. If you do take it out, the town could either leave the $10,000 in there, the voters can take it out, or we can figure out what to do at the last. But we do think it's the right thing, and it allows our programmers to be programmers versus spending a lot of time trying to put together brochures and do that.
Yeah. I can go on for now. I can go on for now.
Okay. And anything else, any other concerns here?
I got a couple of others for.
Yeah, go ahead, go for it.
Remember when we were last talking, you had mentioned that your hope is for the concession stands and for the concession stands to be contracted out through a provider. Budgetarily, if that doesn't happen, are you gonna feel okay finding the $20,000 to then pay for somebody to do a part-time? At least I recall the last time we talked, how we were saying that we wouldn't want the backup plan to be vending machines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we budgeted to net $2,500, so we would, it's currently netting $2,500 in this FY20 programs budget, so we would need to do our best. I think I send you numbers for the past 5 years.
Yeah.
It doesn't always net $2,500, so we would need to work really hard to make sure that we're trying to meet that budget number.
Right.
But that is in the program fund too, so the good part about the program fund is there are other offsets. So if we only net $1,200 somewhere else in one of those program funds, we need to be up
Yeah.
$1,200.
But if you can't find a business to come in and take the concession stands, do you feel okay that you're gonna have enough money to then pay for it will look like a part-time or 2 part-time people to staff the concession stand to have the same thing that has been there in the past?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the process, so there's nothing budgeted for all of those things.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that requires us to come back and present that to you for that significant of a change, because it would be, there would be an increase of 25,000 in expenses and hopefully 27 or 25,000 in revenues as well.
Right.
So I mean, my normal modus of operandi is that we would just do it. We would hire those people and run the expense lines that have zero budgeted into the red, understanding that we'll also run revenue lines into the black, and we need to do that equally plus
Right.
2,500.
And I guess what I would say is if that is the direction that we want to, find a vendor, if not staff it, to give that nod today, and we'll just do what we do.
Yes, personally, I would rather there not be vending machines, and if we can't find a vendor, then there is a staff presence.
But staff's preference is to find a vendor.
Right, and that's fine, I'm fine with there being a vendor to take that space over. If that falls to the wayside, the plan B, like, having it be EJRP staff doing the vending, but.
I think we could just do it tonight, right? We could just add 25 and 25 revenue to expense.
I mean, if you wanted to show that as the backup plan, since Plan A has, I mean, if you'd rather be, budget, it's different because it's the program fund as well.
Right.
So it's not,
It's
it's
not
an
even-
enterprise fund, it's not the general fund, that part doesn't get opined on by the voters. I mean, I think if we put the expenditures or the expense and the revenue in there, and then pursued a vendor instead, the net's $2,500. If we leave it out and we have to do it in-house, it's the net's $2,500.
Right.
The budget is a plan. This is our plan, and the plan, we might have to go to Plan B, but, we know what that is, and I think that's.
Yep.
This would probably be very unpopular, but would a Plan C be, you just don't have a snack bar? Has that been any consideration?
Well, based on Mr. Brown's preference of us not even doing vending machines, I guess that would maybe be an option D.
An option D.
Yeah, I mean, look, we understand, I mean, the pool is a very busy place. I mean, we have over 25,000 people that come through the pool each year.
Right.
So I think it's a great opportunity for a vendor. I'm super optimistic that we'll find a vendor. But you always want to have a backup plan. I think for right now, the backup plan would be to staff it again. I mean, we could do it just like the past. We're just trying to find a new.
I'm gonna guess here, we're not quibbling over the money. I think all of us
No,
just
I
had a
think
gut
it's just,
response to a bunch of vending machines.
Right.
That's really what it's
Yeah.
about.
I didn't have that response.
You didn't?
Yeah, because there are some really,
Well,
I will say, some of those vending choices are better than what's being offered right now at the
Okay.
snack bar.
oh, they're way better. And
Oh.
I think, what I talked about with Kirsten, who oversees the concession stand, is we would go the vendor route. I've shared with her the preferences of, but we did talk about at least presenting, look, if we went with the vending machines, here's what they would look like, and here would be the offerings and prices. So I at least would like, if we get to that point, to still say, look, we found this vendor, here's the margins, here's what they can offer. They have refrigerated vending machines. I mean, so there are some options, but
Yeah.
I think I would say let's proceed with Plan A, and if we need to revisit Plan B, I'm happy to come back, have the conversations, do whatever we need to do budget-wise.
We may be a little off base here with this, but the question is, I understand the whole vending thing or having somebody on site doing this stuff through EGRP, but what about in the summertime when you have these kids going out doing fundraisers, trying to sell whatever, products they're making, school functions, even just what have you, anybody that's out trying to raise Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, whatever, community-based things. They want to sell a product, a food product. Are they able to come in to the pool? I don't even know. Can they come into the pool, the grounds, and sell whatever they're making as a fundraiser?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have them in the concession stand
Right,
itself,
right.
but if they wanted to come and set up a table, we have
Yeah.
groups that reach out to us.
It just seems like I see a lot of that nowadays. There always seems to be something going on for trying to
Yeah,
make profit.
sure.
Yeah, that's not gonna violate any.
No.
Just have one more, going back to what I mentioned last time of, philosophically, I have a hard time letting go of town residents paying the resident fee. And not just it's not I think 9,000 revenue, it's not the money, it's philosophically the 657,000 we're gonna ask village residents to pay in administration, but then give a discount to people not paying it. From a policy, philosophical standpoint, I have a hard time with it. And when I've spoken with both village and town residents, everyone I've spoken with has said, yeah, I get it. I can understand why town wouldn't pay that, or why town would pay that additional fee. So I'm personally just not okay with that.
I would second that.
Yeah, I kind of agree too. I think, my feeling is, I don't want to get in and undo it. I'm willing to see where it goes, but I will say, in retrospect, I wish we had had a little, it seemed like it came at us really fast. I wish
Yeah.
we had a little more time to process it before we had to make a decision about it.
I just think we have to,
And it's not about the money, it's really not
No,
about the
it's-
money, it's just kind of the principle of the thing.
right.
But let me turn it around and say, the select board put 50 grand into the budget that they didn't have to do, which is a positive sign to me. And that, I think, more than compensates for the money. So I guess we're kind of in a dialogue and there's negotiation to sort of see where it goes.
Do you wanna go or you want me to?
You can go.
I see the difference in that the clerk serves the town and the village. It's paid by the town and the village, by all the people who utilize the service.
Yeah.
And are residents of those utilizing the service, whereas EJRP is paid for by village residents, and if somebody outside of that of us as a municipality wants to use it, then you pay more.
I hear what you're saying, and I agreed when I was on the Rec Advisory Council, that we remember having these discussions with the advisory council about the benefit of being a resident of the village, that we get first dibs. I'm willing to concede the monetary difference, but I still would like to see the village residents get first dibs on some of these programs, because I know how valuable it is. I remember, Nan, she was on the board on it, and saying something about being able to get her kids in there before other communities or people from outside the village were able to fill those programs up. And it's important to a lot of these people. I don't know, it just.
But what I've heard, what we had in the course of the conversation, Brad, was that you're on the front line, you're looking at this, your people are collecting these fees, and you didn't see it as a big issue. Is that what I'm understanding? Is that how you see it?
So the approach that Ally and I took is, look, if we're gonna do this thing and live under one roof and put our staff out there, the best way to do that, we feel, is to not differentiate between village and town residents when we're operating under one roof with one brochure, with one registration system.
Yeah.
As to that's what we think is best practice. As to the politics and the budgetary constraints, I hear all of what you're saying, and we really felt strongly that the board should have that conversation. And we welcome that conversation for the boards. I think there's some very valid points to everything that everybody's saying. All we did, we made no judgments about that. All I'm telling you is, if we're gonna be co-located, it's gonna be a real challenge to differentiate by time or cost for people because people won't know if they're signing up for a village or town program, unless it's a historical, one that they know to be. I would tell you, and I think I have the info and dug in here, for the vast majority of the programs that we operate, the signing up in advance is basically a moot point, that most things don't fill that quickly. Swim lessons is certainly an area of concern, and that won't be relevant for this summer. Village Kids, which is the childcare that you often hear that's so important to people, is going to continue to be offered at Summit, Hiawatha, and Fleming. So only those families will have access to that program. And for our summer day camps, which is the other high demand programs, Camp Reach and Camp Maple Street, which serve 180 kids a day in the summer, we have a childcare credit score system that gives points to families who participate in Village Kids, who have previously participated in Camp Reach or Camp Maple Street, or who attends Summit, Hiawatha, or Fleming. So for those big programs, people should not have any fear. But there are some things that will be affected.
So I would just add, I mean, you all know my opinions about what we're doing with the town. I'm really hesitant. I'm usually the one that's holding back a little bit. And I do have a big issue with this. But I thought long and hard about it, and I actually was cleaning up my office recently and found all of the rec governance meeting notes I had. And it reminded me that I felt very strongly at the end of that committee that these recreation departments should be one. Very, very strong. I was very disappointed when the vote didn't happen. And so to me, knowing that Brad and Ally understand the dynamics of the community, and I feel will work hard to make things fair.
Right.
I've been able to set it aside and say, I think for the good of the community and the good of the recreation departments, this is our best path forward. But it is hard to swallow.
Yep.
I mean, it really is.
One last question, real quick. These programs with co-locating and, you know, sharing services or whatever, are you gonna be able to increase the numbers? I mean, I remember the issue was how many kids can we fit into this program? How can we do whatever to increase more lessons, more programs? Are you gonna be able to increase not necessarily the pool, but say the day camp programs, the summer programs and such, so that there's a lot more kids?
What we always do is try and meet demand. And so right now, our summer day camps are meeting demand. There's not a need to expand, other than the last 2 weeks of summer where we don't have access to Fleming for Camp Reach. And we're trying to do some things to mitigate that. But if, and I wish I had a lot of great numbers because I was anticipating this question over and over and it didn't come up in all of my previous presentations, but the number of town outside the village people who attend our summer day camps, Camp Reach and Camp Maple Street, is really, really small. And so the demand currently isn't there. Why is it small? I don't know. I don't know if it's because town outside the village people don't sign up until late and they think it's full because they have to pay the extra $20, or because they want to send their kids to the summer camps that are closest to their homes with the kids they go to school with. I don't know the answers to those questions.
I can see what you're saying, but I also feel like, with this new communications person, as the word gets out, and it's going to be, I think, who knows? I guess this is going to be that testing year to see how things figure out. But as the word gets out, and we've got a good communication person in there, making people aware, I think you're going to see a decrease quite a bit. That's my prediction, but
yeah,
we'll see.
and we'll see. I mean, the only reason we've ever expanded camp or added new camps is because there's demand. And so if that's what this pushes us to, then that's fine. I would say 2 other things. One is it's not relevant for this summer, so you do have an opportunity. You'll actually revisit the budget that's affecting next summer prior to. So actually before this ever really impacts the summer signups, you'll have an opportunity in the next budget cycle to address this. And then my second point is, George, kind of what you were saying is, I think your defense or explanation to taxpayers is, this is a trial run, and if this is the area you go and there is no dollars exchanged, I think that's a valid argument to say, this is a trial run, we hear you, we understand that you're paying additional monies for village recreation, and we will bring that forward in the future. But in order to get this off the ground, this is how we have to start. If that's what I'm not suggesting that's the way you go, but
Brad, I get it, totally get it. So,
But my only other follow-up, so that 9,000 revenue comes out, how do you get the 9,000 back? Are you cutting costs, or are you increasing, are you shifting the 9,000 revenue somewhere else?
Well, the 9,000 so 2 things. The revenues needed to come down by 2,000 to more accurately reflect actuals. There was a little bit of a guesstimation on last year's, on the FY19 revenues at 22,000, I think, because we also increased our non-resident fees from 5, 10, 15 to 10, 15, and 20. So we had to guess. The 22 was a little off. It's actually ended up being about 20. And about 7,000. So what I would have budgeted is 20, but without town revenues, we dropped it by 7. So it's actually a delta of 7. That's in the general fund, so there is no offset. It's just part of your overall revenues.
So are you doing $7,000 less in expenses?
No.
So if it's in the general, then the village is going to pick up that 7,000 loss.
Correct.
I would also make just a quick note that there is a $12,000 contribution from EPR going over as well. Now, I know we talked about buildings and facilities, and so there's just a lot of moving parts, but
Right.
that does help offset that as well.
Yeah, because they're going to use the Aspire space,
Right.
and then, they're going to have access to EJRP. And so village is going to pay the non-resident fee for the town. Yeah, I'm just philosophically,
Which means
I,
we're paying part of it.
right, so we're gonna pay the town to come and, we're gonna pay the town to come and use our parks, or to come and use our programs. I can understand from a customer service standpoint, it's not ideal, I just philosophically, policy-wise, I don't think this is the right move, and I'm just not okay with it.
Yeah, and that's a great summation, because the practice is on us, I think, and the philosophies and policies are board level stuff, and so I'm not even sure if we were talking personally, whether I would disagree with you. I'm talking professionally, I think in practice, this is the best approach.
Totally understand.
Sure.
Other issues, other questions with the budget, with the EJRP in particular, or with the general budget altogether in the background?
So I guess I would just make the statement that if we approve the budget with that part in there, we're basically saying that we're okay as village residents paying town residents, paying for town resident, non-resident fees. Just laying.
I get you. I guess that's one way of framing it. It's,
As we work
there
towards
might be
that,
other ways of
the-
framing it that are more kind of conciliatory, but I get it. So I don't know what to say. General discussion?
Equity goes both ways.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Sorry. Well, we are working towards equity for our entire community, and this is a substantial philosophical leap for the village, but it's a step towards what we're trying to get out, or towards our final hope of having a single community with a single rate for everyone. And I get the issues that folks are having. I'm having trouble hearing most of what everyone's saying. I can hear Brad and George clearly, but not anyone else.
Uh-oh.
But I just want to add in that I think this is a leap that the trustees need to take.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Elaine. I'm only just I was gonna hesitate to add this, but I'll add it now. The only concern I would have for all of us and the select board going forward is a little phenomenon that I've noticed, that we talk about framing things, but I've noticed that if someone to say, why are you guys consolidating? And we said, well, we're making things more efficient. We're gonna be more cost effective. There's a little bit of a tendency I'm seeing where, as we put things together, we create new jobs and new workloads that require new hiring of people. So I'm not saying I've heard all the justification for the communications person and the building services person and so forth. I get it, but on the other hand, we have to ask, if we were not consolidating, then we probably wouldn't be hiring these people. So it's something for all of us to be thinking about going forward.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
I would just like to counter George by
Yeah.
saying, and in the meantime, we have one clerk, we have one financial director, we have one manager. I mean, there are necessary additions over time as, I think the parks, the co-location, yes, might generate the need for one or two more people, but in other areas, we have done a fine job in cutting back in the number of staff. So I think it's a balancing act.
Well, we had all those numbers in place, one clerk, one finance director last year. So I'm saying that the consolidations that have had, those were administration, they seem to be occurring, these new hires. I'm not objecting to them. I'm going to approve the budget. I'm fine with it. I'm not going to try to revisit it or anything. But I'm just saying, as we go forward, it seems to me these are directly a result of putting village and town departments together. Suddenly you've got a larger thing to deal with, and we need to hire a person to help with all the work we've created by putting, I'm trying to get my head around why this is happening, and I haven't figured it out yet, and maybe I'm slow, but it just seems to be something that we want to be paying attention to going forward. Yeah.
And I just want to add an important clarification when it comes to recreation, is that this is really co-location and not consolidation.
Right, gotcha.
And so, I don't know what would happen if Ally and I were to look at all of our resources in one big pile and start to make decisions. We're still looking at two separate piles, and I'm looking at mine and she's looking at hers. And so I just wanna caution that it's very different consolidation versus co-location
Gotcha.
when it comes to recreation.
Gotcha.
Good point.
That's a very good point, Brad.
Okay. Other issues, questions?
No.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the budget fiscal year 20 as presented tonight.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
Color.
Can
Can I ask to clarify?
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
Which,
yeah.
The budget, sorry, go back to that other page.
this original.
I make a
board
motion
report-
that we
Okay.
present, that we approve the budget, for, 5, is that the number?
Yeah.
5.164913. 5.164913.
Okay, and Dan seconds. And I will clarify.
Can you repeat,
Yes.
can you repeat the motion? I couldn't hear it.
It's a motion to approve the budget as presented for $5,164,913, which would have a tax rate, an overall budget growth of 4.24% and a tax rate increase of a flat 3%. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Did you get that, Elaine?
I did, thank you.
Okay. Everyone good? Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And then,
Okay, Elaine, so it's 4-1 with Andrew nay.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Okay. So next up, related to the budget, is just our approval for a warning for a public hearing, as we have to have a public hearing on FY 2020 for the proposed budget and capital program. Sarah?
Yeah.
Do you want, is there,
That's my
that's
understanding.
pretty
too.
much it? Okay, I didn't know if you had some other thing you wanted
Greg
to
said I
add to
should do a
this.
memo.
Okay, well, I can take it from here. So we do need a public hearing, and if anyone out there is watching, we really would love to hear from you, because there are some controversial things. They're not incredibly controversial, but they're kind of controversial. So we would invite you to come in and come to our public hearing, and let us know.
Which will be
how you
when?
feel about it.
Which will be when?
Yeah, do we have the
Oh,
date?
okay, yeah.
I'm sure.
February 12th, 2019. Wait, the public hearing?
Yeah, when is the public hearing?
The memo recommended that you hold it on your Tuesday, February 12th at 6:30.
February 12th at 6:30. Okay?
along those lines, I make a motion, the trustees warn a public hearing for the fiscal year 2020 proposed budgets and a capital program for the Village of Essex Junction to be held Tuesday, February 12th, 2019 at 6:30 at 2 Lincoln Street.
All right.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great.
Aye.
Thank you, Elaine. You're on a little bit of a time delay here. Okay. So next up, we have an item, I will introduce this. We've been, over the years, been in contact in trying to get money, federal funds, state funds, any kind of funds for the rehabilitation of the Amtrak and CCT, it's no longer CCT, Vermont Transit Station. And we have contacted Senator Leahy's office in the past. As you know, federal earmarks, we don't do federal earmarks anymore. The federal programs that were normally available for these kinds of funds are either, it just doesn't fit into any kind of federal program, but Chris Saunders, is that correct? Chris Saunders from Senator Leahy's office contacted us and said they are putting together an appropriations list going forward because they think there might be an opportunity to get some federal funds for certain infrastructure programs in the coming year. And they invited us to participate, and they sent us a form. And I thought it would be a really high priority. The deadline is February 1st, so I asked Evan and Robin and staff to, I got a CC on it, and I said, boy, this is really something else. So I just thought it would be good for us to just have Robin come in and just quickly review it, if we can, and just explain what's going on. Robin, can you, take it away?
Well, hopefully everybody got
Yep.
a draft of the proposal. I did have it reviewed by a friend who writes federal rail funding applications. They seem to think it was fine. There hasn't been any changes since the copy you got. if the Montreal train comes in, it must come through Essex Junction. In fact, it can come up the east coast of Vermont and through Essex Junction. Essex Junction could be the only train station that you get on the train in to go to Montreal in Vermont.
Mhm.
It's actually less expensive to upgrade our train station than it is to upgrade the track from here going west. So there may be a way to put a good face on Chittenden County for Canadians coming down at about 25% of the cost of getting them to go west. Also, this rail line that goes through the village is national rail standard to the Atlantic seaports. It also stops pretty close to the ski slopes, so they can get down from Canada, get off the train close to the ski slopes and get a bus or an Uber up to the ski slopes. So it could be a really good opportunity and economic development for us also. A lot of studies have shown within 2 blocks, excuse me, of a renovated train station, there's a lot of economic activity generated just by the revitalization of the train station. We are already the busiest train station in Vermont.
And so this going forward, they, it also seemed important, Chris warned us that he couldn't say what the possibilities are. He doesn't know. And with the federal government shut down, maybe nothing's gonna happen. We just don't know. But we thought that it was almost more important, not just for the possible money, but also to continue the dialogue with Senator Leahy's office to say when they ask us for something, they're keeping us in mind, we respond right away and appropriately. So that's why we did it. And I also, part of the reason I wanted this on the agenda, and my apologies, I had written a little note to myself because I wanted to say, besides just putting the application in, we wanted to write a personal note from the Essex Junction Trustees to Senator Leahy's office, thanking them for keeping us in mind, and I was supposed to have done that, and of course I forgot completely, until it was about 5:30 tonight, so I wrote a little letter. I'm going to read it for everybody, and you can tell me, and it's real, I kept it brief for this purpose, and then you can tell me, and it's from the trustees, okay? So we'll include this with the application. On behalf of the Essex Junction Trustees, I want to thank you, this is to Chris Saunders, for extending the opportunity to add the proposed Essex Junction Amtrak station upgrade to Senator Leahy's appropriations list. The project is well designed, shovel-ready, and sorely needed. As you know, this is Vermont's busiest train station, and to our knowledge has had no major renovations or improvements since its original construction. Your offer to add this to the appropriations list underscores Senator Leahy's commitment to improving Vermont's transportation infrastructure, and we are very much appreciative. Best regards, me on behalf of the trustees. Is that okay? Elaine, you good with that?
Yep.
Let's hear some edits. Come on, man. Is that good?
Good thing she's not here.
All right.
It'll be a whole new letter.
Okay, so I'll give this to staff, and staff can, I'll email them, and they can include it with the application. And I know it was a lot of work, filling in all the numbers and everything. I just appreciate it, Robin.
I think it's great that they remembered us.
Yeah.
It is great, and we have a design, we have everything worked out. The trustees approved the design and the changes to River Avenue, so it is shovel-ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just seeing
Well,
that
while we're on the
there's,
subject, what's going on with the ADA upgrade?
Robin can fill you in.
Well, that's Amtrak, and
Mm-hmm.
they haven't made any movements on it since the last time we had a conversation. They said it's on their list, but it's not their priority on their list. So they're working through their priorities. When they get to us, they'll do it.
Yeah,
But our design includes that actually. So
yeah, it's funded. The thing is, it's funded, and they came through us. They came through the village office. It's approved. It's all set to go. But then they have to put it out to bid.
Yes.
For contractors. And again, it all assumed that we actually had an operating federal government. So I have no idea. It's probably not a priority down in Washington right now, but hopefully this year. Hopefully, it was supposed to be this spring, and then it got moved to the summer, and so,
that's the last we heard.
it could theoretically be this year. That's it.
So I just see on the request that there are a few boxes with question marks in them. Are those questions you're asking of us, or do you need information from us to fill those in? Or are you
Yes, that would be helpful.
Okay.
If you have any answers for those. I've also asked Chris Saunders about one. I filled in a few gaps that you haven't seen. It just makes sense to me that this is what it would be. He hasn't gotten back to me yet, but I'll call him.
So do we have anything else that we need to do? Are you good for us or what?
Well, I think what Robin was just saying is
Okay.
he would like us, if we could give some kind of a direction around the question marks that are in here.
Let's do that. Let's go through the list.
I'm assuming like what non-federal match would be contributed?
Yes.
And are there any other funds coming based on the budget now? There's no other private funding, there's no other foundation support.
No.
I don't know the answers to the other two. Is the proposed funding stream authorized by law, and if so, what law? And is the project in the president's budget? I would assume no, there's nothing.
No, well, I asked Chris.
It's in our president's budget, is that anyway?
Robin, what is the,
Which
what is
president
the,
that mean?
Right.
what is our anticipated project cost?
Well, it's changed from the last time we had it, estimate was 1.5, so I'm asking for 2.
Jump in the bucket.
Yep.
Yep.
That was 3 years ago, it was 1.5, so.
I don't think we can answer these questions.
That's fine. I'm sure between Chris Saunders, my friend, and
Yeah.
the village offices.
Did Chris make any mention of how our application would be received if we were 0 on the match?
No, he hasn't answered that question.
I mean, could we just put a,
I mean, if
budgetary
you're
issue we'd
talking
have
2
to address
million,
at the time?
if you're talking $2 million, if you offer a 10%
Yeah,
match,
well,
you're
no.
looking for $200,000. Is this project worth $200,000?
I don't know, it might be, but I
Of
don't know where
local
we get
funds?
$200,000.
What's that?
I don't know where we get $200,000.
I would, without speaking for the town, I would imagine that if this was a project of significance, you'd either get it from the town, the state, we can raise it.
Can there-
Economic development funds,
Could there be just a blanket statement of, should we get the funding, we can then start raising other funding, but without a major
But-
funder like the federal
I mean,
government? that-
you already have $200,000 in economic development funds, I believe you have another 50 or 60 in land acquisition funds. 60? I think you could probably at least say 10%, you should say something. And that, what I know from federal grants, usually it's a 30% grant, but this is not a grant.
Yeah.
But it shows that you're serious about doing something, but for the total cost. I might suggest you put down 10%.
Why don't we put down, I agree, why don't we put down 10%, but with a cap? If it's,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, okay, if we're saying 200, if that's the cost, and they got, if they got.
Just
2
simply
million
just
or
say
something,
200,000.
Then the cap is built into it.
Not to exceed whatever.
Yeah. Everyone good with that?
Mhm.
And I could
I don't
see
think
Robin
we need
out there with a
motion.
can, you know.
Yeah, easily.
I'm done
I
with
just-
the tank.
I just worry if that comes through, then that money we've been saving for other things will go away, but for a good project.
Well, Evan just promised that the town would give it to us,
Right.
so I think we'll
I
just
heard it.
hold
Oh,
to
awesome.
that.
Yeah,
the
I
minutes.
believe I said I wouldn't speak for the town, but I
No,
believe
I
they
think
would
you
at
said-
least be they might contribute if Robin was out there with a can.
Then they could have free rec for 20 years.
Yeah,
Right.
Or community development director dump tank at,
There we go.
I did that a few years at the block party.
I mean, I don't, does it, if we say, if we committed to 200,000 and then we had to, let's just think through the timing of it, because we would probably have a pretty significant lead time. I can't imagine that they would suddenly say, hey, we
Great
got the
project.
2 million, but we need the 200,000 by next Tuesday. I think you'd probably have like a year.
And you never know,
Yeah.
because the costs include the ADA
Yeah.
changes, maybe Amtrak would give us the money.
Potentially.
If we're doing the ADA changes.
Or Vermont Transit, Green Mountain Transit, right, Green Mountain Transit.
Yeah, great, GMT.
Yeah, GMT.
I think finding the 200,000 would be the least of our problems
Yeah.
if the government greenlighted it.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Good, sounds good, but
Okay.
good, good faith interest.
Let's go for it.
Okay,
Thank you.
Let's go for
Thank
it.
you.
We've
Thanks,
been
it's
trying to
great.
do this a long time, I shouldn't do
Yeah,
that to you.
right.
But these other questions, you're on your own.
I should have the problem that they agree to it, and then you guys come to me and say, well, Mr. Manager, you
You
said.
said.
Okay, so we are on to determine the evaluation process for the unified manager. Evan?
We are, did we skip D&E?
Alright, I was just gonna say, yeah. We're gonna approve the
Certificate of highway
completion.
miles.
What did we, what?
We're supposed to-
I'm sorry, did we have something else?
5D, the certificate of
Oh,
completion.
good, okay, great, sorry, good catch, sorry, yep. This is the approval of the appropriations for, the certificate of highway mileage.
We're gaining a road. Yeah.
Yes.
What's this, what are we on?
We gained Roscoe Court, where it's this is routinely something we do every year. We have a highway mileage, and we certify that the number of miles that the state believes we have is correct.
So we just need a motion about that certificate.
Yep,
Okay.
so, do I hear a motion?
I'll move that we, the trustees, approve the certificate of completion and opening of a highway for public travel.
Second.
Lori seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, Elaine, so it's unanimous. I'll pass this around. So now we're on to determination of the event.
No, this is the bid.
Oh, good God, why do I
You
have?
tried to jump ahead, George. You
I'm
were
sorry,
listening.
it's not, and I'm not even anxious to get onto that. I don't know why, I guess it's always, okay, awarding the bid on the pipe rehabilitation. And Andrew noticed, and I agree, that this is, the cost is actually under the amount that we normally have for our purchasing.
Policy, which was just a.
Right.
But it's, on the other hand, I'll say, I'm okay with it. I think a big purchase is fine. So, anyway, go ahead.
So yes, it is, but during your discussion of adoption of the purchasing policy, you had stated that you still would like, to see bids come back. This is a small one. We only had one submittal. Rick Hamlin is recommending approval. Mr. Jones recommends approval. He twisted my arm. I recommend approval, so I'm recommending approval of this bid.
Okay.
Let me read this. By Green Mountain Pipeline Services LLC in the amount of $22,620.
There's some music going on now.
Little Rolling Stones
Elaine.
action, little Rolling Stones action
Okay.
going on.
Elaine,
Guys, focus.
we can hear your music.
Sorry.
Alright. Raise my ears. That's
Okay.
a
But
distract.
we still
Okay.
recommend the bid.
Right.
Right.
It's the Rolling Stones, what's wrong with that?
It's a good song.
People, decorum. It's a public meeting. Okay. So, I'm sorry, I got lost in the process. Did we have a
Andrew's motioning.
Do you need us, or do you want us to make a motion? It's under 40,000 by our policy, we don't need to.
I understand, but just, tonight.
Let's do
tonight,
it.
I'm gonna-
Let's go for it. I will make a motion that the trustees award the bid for the pipe rehabilitation project to Green Mountain Pipeline Services LLC for the not-to-exceed amount of $22,620.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, unanimous. Okay, let me see, what are we gonna do next?
That's a surprise.
Now you can get your stack out and we're having
Yes, I don't have a stack. So we are on to determination of the process for evaluating unified manager. And Evan, you have your name next to that, so I'll let you take the lead on it.
In your packet,
Yeah.
in your packet's a memo from Greg Duggan, the deputy town manager, because I hate working on my own evaluation.
Right.
Is you'll notice there's the SMART goals, my memo from 2018, other goals and activities. We propose two options to help this go a little bit smoother. The first one is allow the village president and the select board chair to speak with their respective board members, village and town department heads to evaluate the manager, share those results of their evaluation and recommendation for a bonus with the joint boards and unified manager on February 6th in executive session for evaluation of personnel, and/or allow all board members to evaluate the manager on February 6th together in executive session. We prefer, our staff believes the first option is a little better, and on February 6th, that's your next joint meeting. comes up quickly.
Yep.
That is why we're kind of thinking the village president and town chair and do their interviews.
Yeah. You know, in looking all this over, I thought that we, you know, the SMART goals and the goals we gave for Evan, they're great, but they're not, if we look at them, they're not really goals that say how are things actually going at the operational level. They're sort of projects. They're like little projects that we gave him to do, and we're going to evaluate him on how well he did them. They're extracurricular projects, sort of. And I think we owe it to Evan, and we owe it to everybody, and we have a responsibility just to do a regular evaluation. So I feel option one is a good option. The option that's being recommended is a good option. We do both, in other words.
And I think it aligns well with what was done in the past.
Right, right. Lori?
So two things. One, we had talked at the last meeting.
Yes.
About doing a survey. So sending the
Yes.
survey online, and then you also talking to the department head. So that would still be part of this option one.
Right. What I did, last time we looked at which I think it was something that Pat put together based on his ICMA stuff. And I just looked at it. The only thing, and we looked at it and I asked if any of you had changes, and you didn't. And then the only thing that was a little bit odd about it was it asked questions, and then it asked you to rank. And it seemed kind of odd to rank a question. So the only thing I did was I turned the questions into statements and said rank this 1 through 5.
Great.
And that's the very last document that's here. It's the same thing. So the document, there's one evaluation that's in here that you saw last week, and then there's another one which is basically the same thing. It's the very last thing.
Oh, right, with all the questions.
And it's the same thing, but I just turned the questions into statements.
Okay. Yes.
And I also added, if you feel you can't answer this, you don't have enough information, or it's not an appropriate, then just put in NA as a rank, instead of trying to put some rank in there that doesn't make any sense. And I broke it into two components. One is for the trustees to rank the manager in terms of leadership and responsiveness and integrity and so forth. And the other one is, the other piece was to go to the department heads. And we looked at all of that last week, I believe, but I broke it into two separate documents. So if you'll see the very last document,
Yes,
I said
thank
part
you.
2.
That's great, thank you. So I just want to add an idea to this, which is a little bit out of the norm, but because it's Evan's first year here with us, lovely people, and because this is going to be an anonymous survey, which once it's created, it's going to be really easy to send out, would it be possible to actually include all village staff, to just be able to have, for Evans and for us, more data than just the 5 or 6 department heads that we have, to say, as a staff community, what are we doing? How is he doing?
Well, how often do staff, come in contact with the manager? How would they be in a position to evaluate the manager? Some might be more than others, but.
Right, but we're giving them the option for NA, maybe we just put that in the beginning of it. I would hope that Evan is in contact with staff members. We're not such a large entity that, he's not at the library or public works or people coming in and out and have access. And if you don't, then I'm blissfully unaware of how you manage people. But I thought for the first year, it would, not that this should be something that we do ongoing, but this is a big change. We went from a manager who was here for a long time to a brand new person, and it might be helpful to get additional feedback. I know it's controversial, so I'm throwing it out to hear what everyone else has to say.
Do you really feel that's something that we need to do, or is that something that the department heads can do individually with their staff, with their people that work underneath them, and then go and base the overall evaluation of the manager based on their staff they utilize, I mean. you
But
know.
we're not directing the department heads to do it that way.
No,
We're
but I
asking
mean,
the
I know,
department heads.
but I'm just saying that maybe we could add that to that, bring that out. I mean, at least for the village, I'm not gonna speak for the town, you know.
Right, no, and I'm not speaking for the town, I'm just speaking for the
Well,
village.
Elaine, go ahead.
Is it safe to assume that what we decide to do on the village side is gonna be replicated, or at least we're hoping the select board will replicate it in the town?
I think that's the general idea. I can't guarantee it. We've spoken already about it, and I've spoken to Max about it. I sent him the materials that you have here, Max has, and I think we're, just as they are a little ahead of us on the budget, we're a little bit ahead of this than them. And so the idea was they're going to be looking, you and Irene is here, and the other selectmen are going to be looking at it at an upcoming meeting. And so that's the idea, that we would be using the same, try to keep it consistent, have the same evaluation format across the board. Yeah.
So then if we opted to do a full staff survey, we would have to expand it out to the 100+ employees that the town has as well.
Right, and let
That's
me.
a lot of data to collect in a short period.
Well, I think I might be able to just, I think it is an important piece here. Here are the questions that were for the department heads, okay? The manager appropriately supervises and challenges you. The manager respects your abilities and encourages initiative. The manager is available for guidance and counseling. The manager makes a reasonable effort. Now, see, we just go for this one. The manager is available for guidance and counseling for department heads, but to say that he has to be available for every staff person, that's a little much. The
You don't have
manager
to,
makes.
you don't have to go through all the questions.
Okay, but you see where I'm going? I guess what I'm trying to say here is, I don't have a problem, I hear what you're saying, and I'd be supportive, but I would just say, it seems like we'd want to design a different survey.
You're probably right. I just feel like we're missing some vital information when we just go to the department
Well,
heads. And only because I'm in an organization where, when our manager is evaluated, every single direct report receives a survey, and it's a wealth of information for that individual to have. But we're far in the process, so I will withdraw it.
I mean, to go to what Lori's saying, to that end, we could say, then why don't we go to the village as a whole? I mean, you can look at the business leaders and such in the community that Evan deals directly with. Whether it's here in the village or at Global Foundries or whoever at the Regional Planning Commission. I mean, but where do you draw the line as to, their opinion of his, leadership skills?
With the people who work here.
Yeah, exactly, but he represents our community, so we also need to base it on his, what he's doing outside of the community, or outside of the employees right here, but he's having interactions with other entities, other,
And I would
groups.
say that's where we come into play, the five of us sitting here.
Yes.
I would think that people would be providing us that feedback, and that would come through in our evaluation of them. So, you could also say, well then, a department head staff would come through the department head, and that would, so. I see both sides, and it's troublesome, I just wish, I wish we had something that, I'm a little off tangent here, I wish we had something that we did year after year. I really feel strongly that we seem to talk about this every year, and every year we do something slightly different. So I would like to work on that. But two, I just feel like we're missing some valuable feedback that we could be getting.
Okay, I point taken, yeah.
Is there a reason why we may not be able to get the results before the February 6th meeting?
Yeah.
But could we just do it afterwards, and then we five of us talk about it?
Yeah.
Either in the executive session and or with Evan at a later point in time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we've got an evaluation, I think we got the evaluation process for department heads and trustees and selectmen and town department heads and the SMART goals, but there's no reason we can't do what you're saying. It doesn't have to happen right away.
At this point in time, yes.
And so we could have another discussion. It seemed like we'd probably want to have a discussion with the select board and design something and have it be
And
slightly
maybe that's
different
part
format.
of the bigger discussion of, let's design something as a community that we use year after year.
Yeah, okay,
Thank you.
all right. So, but to get back to the matter at hand, we had a recommendation from staff that we use the form, I guess the idea would be the form that we looked at, the reformatted form that we looked at last week. That would be the one that we would, the trustees and village department heads would use to rank the manager's performance managing the village. But when we meet with the select board, as I understand it, Evan, then we're also gonna be looking, we're gonna be working with them on the SMART, the 4 goals we gave you. Is that correct?
That sounds correct, and then also sometime thereafter, you should also start working on some new goals for the next year.
Yes.
Just to keep the pressure on.
Keep the pressure on, right. So does that, everyone get that? Everyone understand what I'm saying?
But
Yes.
what we have to evaluate on will be sent to us.
Yes.
It won't be in this 177-page package.
No.
Okay.
No.
It'll be in a separate
No.
document.
I'll have to ask, well, I'll work with Evan and Tammy, you know, to put this online, and so, and I guess the way it would be, that's, I guess, another thing to talk about, is that how would we do this? We'd send it out, I would send it to all of you, or staff would send it to all of you, but the results would come back to me, or to one of us.
To you, Nick?
You.
So I'd be the conduit to send it out, and then I would send it to department heads as well. Their responses would come back to me. And then we had talked about, should I go around and talk to department heads in case, I mean, and that was another thing, I can't talk to all the staff in the village, I can talk to the department heads. Okay, so I can do that,
And so, I
but,
mean, Susan and Rick and
yeah,
Brad and,
yes,
you know,
yes.
the ones we've always done.
Yes,
Sarah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to leave you out.
And Sarah.
Oh, she so wants to be part of
She
it.
wants to be part of it. Okay, so I can do that. So I'll send it out, and then for the department head, I don't think I need to meet with each of you person to person, but I can go and talk to the department heads one-on-one. I have their responses and say, is there anything else, and good? Okay, and then I will compile all that information. Do we need to have all that accomplished by February 6th? Is that what we're saying? Okay, that's a lot. Okay, but we can do
I
it.
also may suggest, although contrary to my contract, we can make it any date thereafter. If you want, in the future, if you wanna move it back a month or whatever, it really shouldn't be in budget season.
Yeah, I
It's
mean.
not the best of ideas to do in budget
Well, all
season.
I'm thinking, Evan, is that if we have to have all that data in by February 6th, and the select board is a week behind us, and they haven't even,
They get it tomorrow night.
they're gonna get it, okay, they're gonna get it tomorrow.
They canceled, they moved Monday to Wednesday because of MLK
Okay, all
Day,
right.
so they meet tomorrow.
I was thinking here, okay,
Normally, they would be at least a week behind you,
okay.
this particular. Look, if it doesn't, I don't wanna get,
Yeah, no, go ahead. It's okay. Feel free to discuss your evaluation. It's okay, go ahead.
no, I mean, I guess if I told you you had time and I'm not worried about it, it won't get done.
Exactly.
Right.
So I'd rather you take a good stab at it, and if you need another
Week.
or two, you go.
Okay, let me take a good stab at it. Let us take a good stab at it. I guess what happens is I'll go with Tammy,
Yeah.
and I think if we just put it in a Word document and people can fill out and send back, should be okay.
So
We'll give
just
it
so
a
you
shot.
know, most people, department heads, haven't been allowed to go on vacation during budget season, and they're required to be there. The moment you all say, hey, we're okay with this, they start going
All
on
right.
their days because they have to be back for town meeting and other things. So I
Gotcha.
know I got hired in late February and they put it at a year evaluation. I get it, it could be a little bit later. But we tried to keep you on schedule, and it just so happens that your joint meeting is in February, the next one is in April. So we could schedule one in between, but we also felt that the town and the village should be together for an executive session.
I think you need to keep us on task for this. I think if you push it to April, then it just, yeah, no, we need to be on task
I'm
for this.
sorry, can I ask a
Yep.
question? So when we meet in February in executive session, is it just the board talking about what results we have, or are we talking with Evan at that time?
You're supposed to be talking with me.
I think
So
we.
we're not talking separately about the results before we meet with Evan?
We could, I think the plan would be to have Evan present. You mean,
Are we gonna see the?
oh,
I feel like we need to look at this before we as a 10-member board, not knowing what's in it, sit down with Evan. And maybe it's just, I'm just, you know,
Yeah, no,
I
you're right.
just
No, I get
feel
it.
like we should have some time to review it.
I get it. Yeah, I get it. It is tight. February 6th is
2 weeks away.
2 weeks away.
Am I the only one that feels, if I'm
No,
the
I
only
hear
one
what
who
you're
feels
saying, you know, just being able to get this so we can digest it.
Right.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, it's a lot to.
Maybe what we need to do is I think the February 6th meeting, we need to, if we need to be with the select board and look at the other goals and maybe evaluate Evan on the basis of the goals
SMART goals,
the
yes.
SMART goals that we jointly assigned to him. So let's keep that on track. And maybe what we need to do is, because I see this as a real crunch, is that the individual board member surveys, we'll review those at our next trustee meeting. And what does that mean?
Third, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
Not the third,
but
it's-
it means that it's not gonna have, what's the conclusion we're going to reach at our February 6th meeting? The conclusion we're going to reach is, we're coming to some decision go ahead.
So, Evan has a contract bonus for reaching the SMART goals, right? So we can at least get that done.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Let's stick to that.
And then because I do want to say, I mean, granted, people do these pretty quickly, but I don't want to feel like we're also rushing department heads
Right.
with response to the
Yeah.
resolution.
Why don't you do the SMART goals on February 6th, and your next meeting is April 10th, between the joint boards. Do the second part April 10th.
And if we do it that way, then that'll give us time as trustees to meet with the separate, the more focused village folk or operationally focused evaluation at some point before then. Are you catching all this, Elaine? You understanding what we're saying? Okay. Any thoughts? All good? Okay.
No, as long as it all fits in.
Are you okay
Okay.
with that, Evan?
All good.
Okay, and that'll free up a little bit more time for me to get this done, because
Mark me down as flexible.
manager is
Duly
flexible.
noted.
I do, with any good game show, do I get to challenge or eliminate any particular?
Yeah, we'll hold one evaluation in a hat, but you blindly pick one out,
Right.
we'll discard that one. Okay.
One of which involves the penguin plunge.
Yeah.
Yes.
The penguin plunge. You'll learn what that is.
Okay, so do we need to have a motion to approve the recommended option?
So you wanna, do you need that?
I'm not sure we do.
No, you just.
I think we're
You
good.
have board consensus that option one.
Yeah,
You're going to do my SMART goals for the joint meeting,
right.
in February.
Yeah.
And then you will be doing the, department evaluation stuff for April 10th.
Yeah, we'll have that together
And
by.
before April 10th, you will meet with the board members.
Right.
For the results.
Yeah. Okay, good? Okay. And I will get I'll get the stuff to Tammy and work
And then you
with
will
you.
work with Max.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, and just one last thing, just keep in mind, everybody, February 6th is real close, so be thinking of the SMART goals, so we all sound like we know what we're talking about when we're in there. Good. And so now, very pertinent to tonight's meeting and our last meeting, we have a proposed amendment to the policy regarding trustees meetings. And Evan, go ahead and explain this.
Well, in your packet is a memo from me. There is a state statute that says you're allowed to attend meetings electronically. But before we found that, we looked in your policy and it is silent. So we thought that instead of always having to look up state statutes and try to find it somewhere within there, we would just amend your policy to allow attendance by electronic means. Electronic means could be cell phone, Skype, or some other electronic means, which we are using tonight, we used 2 weeks ago, and more than likely we will use probably in some fashion or form for the next millennium. So we thought we would put it in your policy and update your policy.
Okay. It was interesting, I had asked the question, when Dan voted on something, I said, I know that there's a limit, I think that, but actually it's, as long as you have one person actually physically at the location, you can have everybody else Skyped in, it's a pretty good solution.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so except when you Skype, sometimes you do hear lots of other noises
You
and
do.
things like that.
I do. Not that that's happening now.
Well, maybe like with our cell phone, like what Max does at the top. Please turn this
Right.
off and do other stuff, but understand, but it doesn't happen all that often, it's just that you don't wanna miss a quorum just because of a technicality.
Yep.
So
Yep, okay.
technology allows you to be pretty much in the room.
So do I hear a motion?
I'll move that we amend the Village of Essex trustees policy regarding trustees meetings to include the reference section above.
And can I read the reference to section? So
Sure.
it's 1 VSA, section 312. Okay, second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
I think she's approving it, correct? That was a
She's
delay.
usually delayed, yeah.
Okay, so we're on to the consent agenda. And has everyone read the consent agenda? Everyone good?
I'll move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we are on to the reading file and trustee comments, and actually, normally we would have a manager's report. Evan, do you have any, we're a little, we don't have a manager's report on here, but do you have anything to report?
Well, one thing real quick, I think the Village's Public Works Department did an
Yeah.
absolute fabulous job. They were at it for a long time. They used the South Burlington Airport, or the Burlington Airport. They used their measurement gauge as their official gauge here, 17 and a half inches.
Wow.
Yeah.
We did have equipment breakdowns, because not only of the cold, but a lot of times, like, our equipment, and we have wind plows, they are pushing something back, and everybody said, oh, it's light snow, but after a night of freezing cold, sometimes you are pushing against a frozen block.
Yeah.
And so we've had some breakdowns. So, we're doing some things, and the guys cannot wait for the space needs study to occur, because trying to get all their vehicles out of the cold and into the thing and trying to fix things was a major challenge. But they are in good spirits. They had a nice little breakfast this morning where they made some eggs and stuff, and the guys got together and they did the job. And so they are tired.
Yeah.
I had someone ask me, and sadly I didn't know this answer, how many snowplows do we have that would be out at one time?
I'd have to think about what the
Yeah.
run looked like today. I think we have 4 or 5.
4 or
Yeah,
5?
I think
We
it's gonna be
have
4.
2 sidewalk
Two
plows.
sidewalk plows, okay.
And so probably 7 or 8 people out at any given time probably would be our complement.
Great.
But those would be the types of questions that you would send it to me.
I know, I'm sorry. Someone asked me on Sunday when we were sledding, I was like,
I
wow, I
know.
really should know that answer. but I-
And I was in the room, I was in the big room today, and I'm looking at the trucks, and we have a complement of that. And so, one of the things with a storm like this is you try not to send people home because of the traffic and the times, but our guys just did a bang-up job, and so did the town, by the way. There was also some sharing because we needed the town mechanic to come down and fix a hydraulic line, and they needed us to cover something for them. And so we shared some services together to make sure we were able to cover.
Good.
Fantastic.
That's all I have.
Okay. Anyone else? I think I sent all of you, to make sure I didn't ask you not to respond to me, but I had, the first time around, we looked at the Du Bois and King and the RPC updated plan for incorporating looking at the design five corners and having incorporated it into the village plan. And we looked at it under different circumstances. So I wanted, and I don't think we really dealt with it and we didn't really discuss it. When I met with the reps from Du Bois and King last, and I never know how to pronounce their name.
Du Bois.
Is it Du Bois?
Du Bois.
It's Du Bois, it's like Notre Dame. Okay, Du Bois and King. They last August, they said they would be ready to come in and do a presentation at the end of 2018 or beginning of 2019. So I would like to have them come in and actually do their presentation. But my question was, can we have, I thought it might be a good idea to have the Planning Commission here.
Yeah.
And have it be a joint meeting. But if not, if we wanted to, or do we want to have other people here, or do we want to have some other format? They'll probably do pretty much anything we ask.
I think having the planning commission would be great. I bumped into one current member getting coffee the other day and talked about how nice it would be to have a joint meeting again soon, and that Design Five Corners would be a great topic.
Right, right.
The only thing that might be is, like you said, it's obviously open to the public.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, no, it's a public
But I
meeting.
just wonder if maybe we might want another venue just in case. I know how passionate some of the people have been about the proposed closure of Main Street between the Five Corners and Railroad Avenue. So just in case many people show up.
Right. I mean, this includes, it's got, I kind of mentioned, and it includes so much more than just the traffic study. And I do want to, we had confusion, and I wanted to highlight that. The traffic study included data from like 10 years, traffic data. It wasn't just like a month or something like that. And it has a lot of significant information in it. Besides that, I also said, we've talked a lot about what we do different things to say, well, let's look at heart and soul values. They really looked at heart and soul values and incorporated them into policy and showed that how it could be done. And I thought that in and of itself was worthy of discussion.
Yeah.
So I'll ask staff to set up a meeting with the Planning Commission. And I guess we could anticipate, I don't know, we could have
Do
it in a
you
bigger
want
venue.
to potentially use 81 Main's room or some other,
Well,
or
let-
the police?
Well, let's look at it this way. If there's 5 of us and 7 of them and staff, so right off the bat, we need a pretty big space. So let's think about it. We'll find a spot. Yeah, we don't have to decide tonight.
Okay.
I mean, this is a little small. Irene?
If I may just make a comment on the tree advisory committee minutes.
Oh, sure.
They keep mentioning the EAB plan, and I know it's the Emerald Ash Borer, but they don't define it on their agenda, and they don't define it within the minutes. So if there's some way, for transparency's sake, that the public could see what an EAB is in case they just came to it
Okay.
sort of uneducated or not in the know.
Sounds good. Okay. So I will make I would make that recommendation to our minutes taker? Is that what we was doing? Is that how we would make that correction?
Darby was the minutes taker.
Darby?
Reporter.
One of the things I'll be mentioning at the department head meeting is our usual reliance on acronyms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I meant, I didn't mean,
Important to-
I just mean, I'm not sure how we correct this into the
I'll be
minutes.
mentioning it to the staff people.
Or the tree people, or,
Yeah,
okay.
and
all right,
then it'll get out.
Okay. Okay.
And I'll try to get all of my acronyms straight when I jumble the letters around.
I do think,
Sorry, I was gonna just say that I think that, it's standard to have, the acronym after the.
Spelled after, yeah, this didn't happen, it didn't
So-
happen. I wasn't sure who was responsible for that.
I'll make a note to pass that
Okay.
information. I just wanna alert staff and you guys, I may not be here for the February 26th meeting. Nor will I be Skyping in.
Nor you'll be what?
Nor will I be Skyping in.
You won't be Skyping in after we passed our nice policy?
I know.
All right, okay. Anything else?
I can let you know we will not accept collect call charges.
Oh, come on.
Well, maybe.
Yes, I do have one more thing. So it was in the Essex Reporter, and I just think I should tell everyone in TV land in case they haven't seen Essex Reporter. So I have decided not to run for office again, which I think you all knew. So when my term is up in April, so I'm suggesting to anyone who might be watching who's interested, I'd be happy to talk to anyone about what this great job entails. If anyone's interested in that. But it's been fun.
It ain't over yet, Lori.
Not yet. Not yet.
Can't leave that easy.
We'll talk more about this. Okay.
I do believe the filing deadline is coming up quickly, though. I believe.
Not for us, not for village.
Okay.
For select board.
When is the village
February, isn't it?
filing deadline?
Village, I think is
March.
in February or
Or
sometime.
March.
March,
Beginning of March?
And the select board is
next week, I
next
think.
week, right, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sides, please.
Anything else? Any other trustee comments, concerns? Anything about the reading file? Everyone good on that? Okay, so there is not an executive session tonight, so I will entertain a motion that we adjourn.
Move adjourned.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, Elaine, stay out of the sun.